Sometimes there are formatting options that are not available in the ribbon. For example, earlier in the notes we mentioned the ribbon is divided into various tabs, and this is the Home tab. The Home tab is broken into various groups. This is the font group, this is the alignment group, and in the bottom right corner of some of these groups is what they call the dialog box launcher. This dialog box launcher or little arrow can be clicked. So an example might be, if I click in the cell D22 and I want H2O, as in water, I'll type H2O and press enter. If I then click on the cell, go up to my formula bar and highlight just the two, I wish to apply the format Subscript, but Subscript is not a button in the ribbon. So in this case I'll click the Font Dialog Box Launcher. When I click the Font Dialog Box Launcher, I'm given extra options that don't necessarily appear in the ribbon, and the option I'm after is Subscript. When I click OK, Subscript appears, and I have H2O in the cell D22. Another formatting option that you might like to use is sometimes I don't like to see all these grid lines appear, and they do by default in a new sheet. So what I'll do is I'll actually turn off the grid lines. If I go to the Page Layout tab in the ribbon, I have the option here in Sheet Options to untick and unview the grid lines. If I take the tick off, the grid lines disappear. If I tick it again, the grid lines reappear. Often I prefer to take the grid lines off, and instead I'll use borders. For example, I might highlight B3 to D18, and I'd like to apply borders to these cells rather than grid lines. So from the Home tab in the ribbon, I'll click Home and I'll go to the Borders icon. The Borders icon, when I hit the drop down, gives me a number of border options, and I'm after all borders. When I click All Borders, I have all borders around the selected cells, and this is sometimes preferable to grid lines. Another final option I'd like to cover is Wrap Text. We used Wrap Text in the earlier exercise, but when it comes to wrapping the text, and I'll show you, if I type sales figures 2013, I don't want to widen the column, so instead I'll wrap the text by hitting the Wrap Text button, which appears on the Home tab in the Alignment group, and this wraps the text. If the column width should be increased, the wrapping of the text varies depending on the width of the column. Sometimes I don't want the text to wrap in varying places, so I'll actually wrap the text myself. For example, if I click in the cell F32 and type sales, instead of pressing enter, I'll press Alt Enter. Alt Enter gives me a second line in the same cell. Alt Enter, and then I'll type figures. If I press Alt Enter again, I'll get a third line in the same cell and type 2013. When I press enter, the text is wrapped. The difference between this wrapping though and the wrapping above is if I alter the width of the column and make it wider, the text will always wrap at the point that I told it to because I used Alt Enter, whereas this will wrap where it feels necessary.